Chapter 3. As time goes on, things only get worse. The next part of the story takes place sometime later on, when White Fang has grown to an adult, although it's not given any proper development, as the story automatically jumps from White Fang's puppyhood to his adulthood. Yeah, this movie has such poor transitions from one chapter to another. And so in the next shot, we see Gray Beaver riding through the snow in a sled that's being pulled by a couple of dogs. Once again, the animation shows just how sloppy and inconsistent it really is. I mean, seriously, this artwork is really quite shit. Gray Beaver has his dogs park in a certain location in town, and he tells White Fang to stay with the team, while he goes off to sell fur coats.
Oh! White Fang, stay with the team.
And it is in this scene we are introduced to the second villain in this movie, Beauty Smith. Apparently, he's gotten himself a job as a salesman selling stuff to customers. And I really hate to say this now, but we have yet another fucking musical number.
I've got everything you want. Step right up and see. Things for the ladies and powder for the fleas. I got gum and oil and things to wear. Lotions and potions and the claw the bear. It's a thing of beauty when I do.
Seriously, Goodtimes Entertainment, we don't need another fucking musical number. You do an absolutely piss-poor job at them. Not to mention, Disney has done a much better job than you do at pulling them off. Stop trying to copy Disney. Ugh, by this point of the film, I just want to tear out my ears. In Smith's song, he says something along the lines of,
I'm doing the flim flam. Thank you, ma'am. I'm doing the flim flam. Thank you, ma'am. I'm doing the
last I checked, flim flam is along the lines of conning others. So basically, he's saying that he's conning people straight to their faces. Wow. How did he not get noticed for that? So as you guessed, this song is just painful to listen to. Not that any of the other songs are better. And so after that horrible musical number is over, we continue on with the story. But of course, things would have been perfectly fine if it wasn't for somebody to cause trouble for White Fang. And in this case, we get yet another asshole dog named Spike. Gee. Hasn't that name been used like, I don't know, so many times before, including Cowboy Bebop? Or Tom and Jerry? And let's not forget that Spike Witwicky was the name of the kid from the original Transformers show. Anyway, back to the shitty movie. Spike comes in and threatens White Fang with violence.
You new in town? Thought so. Otherwise you wouldn't be taking up space on my dock.
Listen, I'm just waiting for my human to return, and then I'll be on my way.
I guess you didn't hear what I said. I said move it, if you know what's good for you.
Well, that seems to be a problem I've had all my life. Not knowing what's good for me.
That's it, wise guy. On your feet. Nobody messes with Spike and gets away with it.
If you insist.
Naturally, White Fang defends himself from Spike and gains the upper hand on him. He is successfully able to defend himself from his attacker, but then they bring their fight over to Beauty Smith's stolen merchandise stand and they completely trash it, thus leading to how this film explains how White Fang was passed on to Beauty Smith.
White Fang.
It is in this scene where Gray Beaver is held responsible and is forced to give up White Fang, as Smith threatens that he'll have the law on his ass if he refuses.
Tell you what I'll do. Throw in the dog and we'll call it even, huh?
White Fang? Never.
Sir, you leave me no choice but to summon the law.
No.
But before Gray Beaver parts, he tells White Fang,
You've really gone and done it this time, my friend. I'm afraid you're his dog now.
But wait a minute, why does he say that with a smile on his face? It's almost like he actually wanted to get rid of White Fang. But then again, considering how far Gray Beaver has come, in showing how completely incompetent and inept he is to properly care for White Fang, why start now? But the worst part about the scene is where he tells Smith to
treat him fairly. He's a good dog.
Wait. Let's see how many times Gray Beaver has treated White Fang fairly.
What am I going to do with you? If you can't be trusted, White Fang, you will have to live without your freedom. It's bad enough that I've had to lose one dog. I don't intend to lose another. I don't want any more trouble from you. Learn that, or you'll learn the feel of this. Understand? So, you've chosen to come back. It is good. But in order to stay, you will have to earn your keep. White Fang, hold!
And so I rest my case. First of all, you should have kept him close to you to make sure that he didn't get into trouble. It's your fault for not watching out for White Fang in the first place. Had you kept an eye on him, he wouldn't have had to defend himself from that other dog, and this wouldn't have happened. So really, this is more your fault than his. And also, you have no business telling Smith to treat him fairly when you yourself never showed White Fang any respect. This guy fails as a dog owner, and on top of that, he's a major hypocrite who totally contradicts himself. Well, thankfully, this is the last we see of Grey Beaver for the rest of the film. And thank God for that, because he was a jerk anyway. Goodbye and good riddance.
I see you understand the whip.
Sadly, the wolf dog's misfortune isn't over yet, as we soon discover that Beauty Smith is even worse than White Fang's previous owner. Believe me, Grey Beaver's a dickhead, but he's nothing compared to Beauty Smith. Now, just a quick run on Beauty Smith. He's the main villain of the novel by Jack London, and as such, he is often depicted as a completely selfish, arrogant, antagonistic, and greedy bastard who uses White Fang as entertainment in dogfight competitions. And well, I'll give credit where it's due. This movie stays true to the source material because Smith actually does use White Fang for dogfights in his greedy attempt to make money, or in this case, swipe money from others. And well, he does a pretty good job demonstrating how much of a douchebag he really is. In fact, this almost makes me see Grey Beaver in a more positive light. But when I say almost, I specifically mean almost, because we all know that he wasn't a good master either. And so Beauty Smith threatens White Fang to make the fights look convincing, or else he'll be punished by being whipped, and he will go unrewarded.
Back, White Fang. Back off. Let's not kill the competition. They might want a rematch someday. All right, you losers. Pay up! We'll let these suckers have one more fight, then call it a day. Just don't make it look too easy, or you'll taste the whip again tonight. Understand?
But then, another competitor arrives with a rather puny and harmless-looking dog. Smith scoffs off and tells the man to bring his dog back when he's full grown.
Sir, surely you're not serious, huh? Why don't you bring your dog back when he's full grown?
But the man insists, and Smith accepts the challenge with a sense of overconfidence.
You said you'd take on all comers. Are you backing out?
Backing out? Moi? Never. In fact, I'll give odds of 50 to 1, huh?
50 to 1? It is.
White Fang loses to this dog, who has a tight and, needless to say, devastating grip on his neck. But that's when we are introduced to the hero of this film, Weedon Scott. For those of you who don't know who he is, Weedon Scott is White Fang's third master, who in every retelling of the story is a much better pet owner than Grey Beaver or Beauty Smith could ever hope to be. And well, his depiction in this cartoon is no different. I mean, after all, somebody has to care about White Fang and succeed where his two previous owners have failed. He's pretty fair as a character, and he doesn't come off as a complete jerk-ass like the two aforementioned human characters. So anyway, Scott comes in to save the day as he stops Smith from abusing White Fang any further. But there's something wrong in this shot. Scott apparently speaks with a stereotypical Macho Man superhero voice.
You coward!
You're the only coward around here.
How dare you, sir? I'm in charge here. Just who do you think you are, coming in here like this anyway?
The name's Weedon Scott, and I'm putting a stop to this.
I mean, seriously? We get that he's the good guy. Does he have to sound like a stereotypical superhero? That's really unnecessary. Anyway, Scott manages to snatch the whip away from Smith, and he apparently ties him up in a somewhat comedic and cartoonish fashion. And after that, we get a shot of Scott marching alongside in a Macho Man sort of manner as the camera focuses on him. But when the camera zooms out, he looks down at the ground. Okay. What the hell was the point of that? Dramatic purposes? Because they think it looks cool? But enough of that. Back to the story. Scott sees the injured White Fang and takes him back with him to his cottage, despite the warning from a bystander that he might turn on him.
He's pretty much done for, mister. You ought to just leave him be.
I'll take my chances.
Yeah, but mister, he's a wolf. A wild thing. He'll turn on you as soon as he is able.
But not before Smith throws a hissy fit at Scott for taking away the wolf dog and for humiliating him in front of everybody. Scott answers to this by throwing a coin to Smith's feet and saying,
Here's $1. It's more than you're worth.
Why, you...
Smith is then surrounded by angry customers who demand their money back. And to this, he swears revenge. You know, like any other villain would. It's become commonplace.
Trying to welch out on us, are you? Get the rope, boys. We got us a cheat. Yeah! Pay up, Smith. Yeah!
You haven't seen the last of me, Weedon Scott.
Chapter 4. And so after that's over, we finally arrive to Scott's cottage, where he attends to White Fang's injuries. Although due to the incredibly low-budget animation, we don't really see any blood or injuries on White Fang despite the punishment he's endured. And before some wise-ass comes along correcting me, yes, I know that this was intended for a younger audience, and I know that this was made on a low budget, but still, this animation definitely shows its age, regardless of what you say. Anyway, at this point, we are introduced to White Fang's inevitable love interest, Kali, who for some odd reason reminds me so much of Sasha from All Dogs Go to Heaven 2, except only she's far less attractive. And she's obnoxious. But hey, at least she's not a complete idiot like Kiche was. Kali's voice isn't as bland as Kiche's, but she does come off as annoying in her first few minutes of screen time. Because as soon as White Fang is brought into the house, she starts bitching and questions his presence. Although her dialogue is translated through barks by her narration.
Hey, you're not thinking of taking that thing inside the house, are you? Whoa! What are you doing? Not in my bed. Ugh. P.U. You stink.
When White Fang regains consciousness, he is greeted by the strangely designed Kali. At this point, we see that White Fang is at first distrusting and unwilling to open up to Scott after the constant abuse that he received from his two previous owners.
You're awake. Now, easy.
And thus, the wolf dog snaps the rope restraining him and tries to attack Scott. Okay, first of all, they had chains back in the 19th century. What the hell was Scott doing using ropes? But just when White Fang had Scott cornered, Kali gets in between them and tells White Fang to back off.
Back off, Buster.
After sniffing her out, he exclaims,
You're a girl.
No kidding. You noticed.
I can't fight a girl. It wouldn't be right.
Really? Like he couldn't tell at first glance? I mean, her eyelashes and feminine voice are a clear giveaway that she's a girl. Note, this is actually true to the novel, because White Fang refused to fight females in the novel as well. Kali and White Fang have a casual conversation about things, all while Scott just stands there watching. Obviously, he can't understand dog language since their dialogue is all just barking to him. White Fang, however, acts all stubborn and ungrateful, stating that he doesn't want help from Scott, and showing absolutely no gratitude to him for saving his life.
What's he to you, anyway?
That'd be my business. All you have to know is that he saved your life. He's trying to help you get well.
I don't need his help.
Fine. The door's over there. Go if you don't want help. Leave us alone.
But since he was abused all his life, I guess I can't really blame him for acting this way. Of course, by this point in the film, it's obvious that they oversimplified the source material to the point of making it seem almost incoherent. And probably to shorten the length of this film since they were going over budget. Because a lot more happened in the story than what this movie lets on. And this movie doesn't do the novel justice. And all of a sudden, Kali grows fond of White Fang despite the fact that she barely even knew him at all, let alone his name for that matter. And just a second ago, she was complaining about his presence. When feeding him some steaks, Scott is quick to learn that White Fang hates sticks.
The stick, of course.
so he wisely puts the steak down and gives him the meat. You know something? It's a real shame that White Fang never stood up to Grey Beaver this way. Back to the story at hand. Scott sees that White Fang doesn't want to stay, so he opens the door for him in case he wants to leave.
You want to leave? I'll open the door for you. You're free to go.
But the wolf dog is hesitant to leave for some odd reason, despite stating earlier that he didn't want his help in the first place. For Christ's sake, White Fang, make up your damn mind. Do you want to leave or don't you? Once again, we are treated to yet another fucking musical number from Kali about missing White Fang.
Tell me who you are. Just stay with me a while. Have you ever
You've only known him for a short period of time. How can you miss him? This entire movie is fucking retarded.
You seem so afraid.
Thankfully, this is the last musical number we're getting. Thank goodness. Okay, I'm getting tired of this, so I'm just gonna cut to the end, wrap it up, and give my final word. Towards the end, Beauty Smith comes back, seeking revenge. But then out of nowhere, White Fang comes back just in the nick of time to stop him and to save Scott and Kali from their would-be captor and possibly executioner. Talk about fast-paced, that was pretty quick. And it is in this point, when White Fang is about to maul Smith, when Scott and Kali plead him not to kill the bastard, since only humans kill for revenge.
Listen, White Fang. Only humans kill for revenge.
Honestly, these people couldn't have been bigger dumbasses. Animals can be vengeful too if you abuse them long enough. Believe me, I've done my research, and animals can become full of hate and vengeance if you mistreat them long enough. But let's cut to the end. We're almost there. After Beauty Smith is arrested, we then end the story with White Fang and Kali, who now have pups of their own. The end. Closing thoughts. So there you have it. That's the 1997 White Fang animated movie. So, how does it hold up? Well, it doesn't. It's a poorly made film that feels rushed with no real effort put into its animation, writing, narration, or its characters. The animation is atrocious. The characters are either bland, uninspired, idiotic, obnoxious, or all the above. The musical numbers were annoying, uncreative, and unnecessary as hell, my most hated being Lip Lip Song. The editing was lazy and sloppy, and the movie itself oversimplifies the source material. So yeah, this movie really hasn't aged well. But I guess in this case, that's a good thing, because the movie is only 44 minutes long. That's pretty short, and thank God for that, because that just meant that I didn't have to sit through this pile of shit anymore. This whole movie was basically a very watered down version of the novel, and a very lame attempt to cash in on the success of Balto. Yes, I know that this movie was aimed at a younger audience, but take it from me, Disney and Don Bluth have done a much better job than Goodtimes Entertainment has ever done in making these kinds of films. And if you ask me, I would much rather be reading Jack London's novel or watch any of the live-action films starring Jed. At least those movies were watchable and enjoyable, unlike this heap of garbage. This film is good for a laugh, but that's about it. You might get some enjoyment out of this movie, if only to laugh at its stupidity, but if you actually sit down and watch this movie, I can guarantee that you will definitely feel its age along with just how little effort was put into it. All in all, this cartoon is just garbage. I personally do not recommend this since there are much better adaptations of the source material. In conclusion, I give this movie an F.
Sometimes at night, when the hour is late, I lay awake with a tear on my face, close my